What do you know about Dr. Dunch?
Based on the unbelievable true story.
I can't make sense of this.
Dr. Death.
Dunch has 2 deaths that we know of.
Starring Joshua Jackson with Christian Slater and Alec Baldwin.
I am going to fix you.
All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.
Good morning, Pop Chasers, and happy Tuesday, June 22nd. I'm Allison, and I'm joined by Kate. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
And we are the hosts of Pop Chaser, a daily pop culture podcast brought to you by The Dip. And it is a Tuesday. It is a new week. We are back. Hopefully you listened to our TV Watch Repeat episode that came out yesterday on Monday, where we go into the history of Siesta Key. And that is basically the hills, but in Florida. So it's very good. Like, I've kept watching it since we watched the pilot, and we're joined by 2 really fantastic hosts of Table Flipping with Alyssa and Taylor. And it's just a lot of fun. I recommend it. It's in the TV Watch Repeat feed. And while you're there, you might as well like and subscribe and review and do all that. But today we are talking pop culture. We are talking entertainment headlines, and we've got some good ones to get into today. What do you think, Kate?
Yeah, and just a reminder for everybody who I know watched Bachelor last night, we like to stay away from spoilers the day after, so we'll be talking about it tomorrow. But you can go to thedip.com if you want to see what we thought about the episode, because there's plenty of coverage there. But we will chat about all of the goings-ons tomorrow. But we do have a Bachelor story tangentially related that we want to talk about today.
We do. And that is the New York Magazine story penned by Rachel Lindsay, who has obviously been, I would say, like in the last 6 months, while like the Bachelor franchise goes through a long-awaited reckoning, has kind of become like the voice of the Black contestant experience, but also as a lead. And I think a lot of weight has been put on her shoulders. And she wrote a really fantastic essay, if you will, kind of just going through her entire experience on the show. I recommend people read it. It's definitely caused a little bit of a stir because she wasn't happy with the headline that was used in the print edition. But inside, it's all her own words, and she just kind of talks through a lot of stuff. First of all, she talks through the Peter breakup, which is iconic in its own right and very canon for the show. But really just about how at that point in their relationship, and this shocked me, she had already lost romantic interest in him because she had met some of his friends. They didn't really get along. She felt kind of exploited by the way that the producer set it up, in that they were, they like hung out with like 2 other couples that were made up of like people of different races. So she felt like it was just very like exploitative, and they were really trying to set Peter up to be this, well, good-natured guy. How could you hate him? Yeah. And then on the flip side, they were really leaning into Brian, her now husband, being this Latino man. And like, he even, I guess, told her like he had never felt more Latino than when he was on the show, because they would always play music behind him that had kind of a Latin flair. And they were really playing into these
the tokenization.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I think at that point she'd kind of checked out. And especially when it comes to Peter, she was like, people always said like, it feels like she picked Brian as like a consolation, but really at that point it sounds like she was in with Brian. So,
and we definitely didn't see that. And I think part of that is also them trying to create a narrative around Peter, because they very clearly wanted him as the next Bachelor, and so they were trying to create like sympathy over that. But that totally just sort of doesn't override the clear tokenism that took place. I mean, we know that The Bachelor does not know how to handle the storylines of non-white individuals. Like, it's been proven time and time again at this point. And, it is to me, it's really sad to see that Rachel has had to carry this burden herself for so long and continue to do it. And the fact that, her interview with Chris is sort of the thing that kicked off, his exit from I'll say exit, not firing, from the franchise. But it's really put her in this place where she's kind of wanted to not be a part of this narrative anymore. And she's constantly
the headline
in it.
The headline for the print edition was "Oops, I blew up The Bachelor." And that is,
Yikes.
Again, like just kind of putting that blame on her, where it's like, well, no, I would say that the 50-something-year-old man who leaned into antiquated and racist ideology is probably the person who blew up The Bachelor.
I mean, also like, oops is a little like, first of all, that's putting fault on her side.
Also, let's not bring up Britney Spears into this.
Like Leave Britney
alone. Free Britney.
Free Britney from this narrative too.
But one thing I will say is Rachel did say in her piece that she would not come back if they paid her unless it was, and then jokingly she says, unless it was like 8 figures, which like, good, get that money. But I think this is probably, it's one of those things too that just sucks for her, because no matter what, she's always going to be asked. She's always going to be asked. I also saw something that's a little scandalous. Ooh. And it was that, I guess, you have these, when you're done with the show, when you're done with The Bachelor, you still are on contract. And I mean, Rachel has talked about that a lot too, especially when they use you for, like little pop-up appearances on the show or whatnot. And obviously Matt James, the forgotten season,
the season we'd like to forget, you mean?
He is still in contract, of course. He's probably just automatically going to be in contract for at least a year after the show. And he was blocked, allegedly, from going on Rachel's podcast, Higher Learning.
Oh my gosh.
Which is very interesting, because if he was on that podcast, he would, Rachel and him would have a very important conversation that definitely needs to be had, and that's not going to happen. So, I don't know if that's something that could happen in the future, but at this point, it's definitely it feels like the line in the sand has been drawn, and I don't know. Also, Rachel, Kirkconnell, and Matt are now Instagram officials. So,
oh boy. Well, I mean, hopefully we still have brighter days ahead for this franchise. Katie's season kicked off to a good start. Hopeful, but I'm also hopeful that Rachel is able to escape this at last.
Yeah, I mean, I hope she can leave it behind, but we'll see. I think that this is one of those things that, unfortunately, I hope she just makes it. I hope she just takes advantage of it, like just be the, get all the money you can for appearances elsewhere, not necessarily on the show. And, be the one that's laughing as you go to the bank with it.
She certainly deserves it.
100%. So moving on, I know, Kate, you were very excited about a trailer that came out on Monday. Do you want to talk about it?
Oh my gosh. It is like as cozy as a nice, cold beer and some shepherd's pie on a cold night. It is the Ted Lasso season 2 trailer. I am so excited for the show. It is coming out at the end of July. It's actually very tough because I love the Olympics and I love Ted Lasso, and they're kind of competing with each other right now. And I don't know which one I'm going to watch more intently at the end of July. But as we see in the new trailer, as we actually kind of know in the season 1 setup for the rest of the seasons, the team is trying to get themselves back into the league. And then I'm sure next season will be about whether they can win the whole shebang. So this is kind of like our mid-season where they're like Richmond is trying to get back to where they came from. And it seems like things aren't going as well as they should be. And, we see some new characters, including a new version of Ted Lasso called Led Tasso, which is like the mean version of him, which is very funny and silly. I know, but I can't wait. But either way, it seems like it's going to just be a lot of what we saw in season 1, a lot of like heartwarming moments, and a lot of quotables and everything. And so I am so psyched for the new season. I think it's going to arrive just in time. And I am sad that there's only going to be one season afterwards. And I guess I'm going to watch it another like 5,000 times like I did the first one. But if you haven't watched the first one already, prepare yourself for this. Please watch the first one. I promise you're going to love it. You're going to watch it over and over. It is a reason enough to get Apple TV Plus. it just feels good. It just goes down so smooth. So I just cannot recommend it enough.
Well, you have recommended it a lot. So
are you finally going to watch it? Are you ever going to watch it,
No.
Allison?
Probably not.
But it just pains me. It pains me when people don't embrace this fully because it is so good and it'll just make you happy.
Well, maybe down the line. I have a lot of shows I'm watching right now. I'm just a busy gal. So Ted Lasso is not necessarily on the top, but who knows?
Well, just you wait. I'm going to do it for TV Watch Repeat. So I'm going to force you to watch it.
We're going to dive into the pilot of a show that came out last year.
Yes. Just you wait. I mean, we've done crazier things, as everybody will see in a couple weeks.
Okay. So our last story of the day is, we're talking about everyone's favorite couple, but actually adjacent to. So obviously everyone is still buzzing about whatever the hell is happening with J-Lo and Ben Affleck. I mean, I don't know what it is.
It's something. We've decided it's something.
They're either in cahoots or in a relationship, and I'm fine with either of them, to be honest.
Yeah, we are all here for it. We were here to see it through. I am interested to see how they will end it, because it will have to end eventually. So are they going to go out in a scripted like bang where like something crazy happens and then we have reason to talk about this like in perpetuity? Or do they just quietly sunset it and just say like, we've decided to just be friends?
I mean, time will tell for sure. But I think that we are definitely, there's a new layer to this drama. And that is that Alex Rodriguez, A-Rod, is trying to get back in the game too with Ben Affleck's ex now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Lindsay Shookus. When I saw that name, it was like a blast from the past. I feel like when did they date? It was like 2017 or 26. It was a long time ago, right? That Ben Affleck and her dated.
Okay, 2017 is not that long ago.
Well, I mean, it's 2021. We are getting close to halfway.
Sure, but you were like, it was a long time ago.
My memory doesn't go back.
They were like
far.
on and off for like 2 years at that point, 2017 to 2019.
And I remember it was like a big deal because he's dating sort of a quote unquote normal. And this woman, she was a employee of SNL. She was not a cast member. I believe she was like a producer or a comms person.
I think she was like the talent booker.
Right. And she was sort of like his first post Jen Garner divorce person. And yeah, it was sort of off and on, but now it's interesting to see that she's now kind of getting involved in
A-Rod's getting in this.
Yeah, it's like it's turning into this web, this elaborate web that like how much can we connect this to Bravo, to everything else? It's kind of nuts.
Supposedly they are long-time friends. And they haven't like said anything, of course, but I guess that he was seen at her B-Day party this past weekend. So it is pretty funny just to see how this just is. I mean, if you were to create a web, which we actually did.
If you go on thedip.com, our colleague Samantha Bush put together a web of all of the dating patterns of folks on Bravo and all this, and found that it all comes back to Dip.
Right. But the thing is like J-Lo is on this web, which is just an insult to J-Lo. Like, but the thing is like for so many of, especially this little quad, it's like the line is just getting thicker and thicker because it just keeps going back and forth.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be the web is not, it is big with the Bravo people, but with J-Lo, Ben, Lindsay, and A-Rod now, it's just a square, I think.
Would you have thought that being a talent booker at SNL would be a job that would actually attract you boyfriends in the industry? Like I'm kind of like shocked
I think
that.
No,
I think like you could be like, I know them.
You're talent facing.
But aren't you sort of also mostly talking to representatives and everything?
No, I have a feeling when like the host comes in, like the talent booker is probably like their point of contact person.
But then why haven't we seen more talent bookers like getting game? Or is she just...
Well, I think because at the end of the day, like, I mean, I don't know. Matt Damon is married to a real estate agent. Why aren't we seeing more celebrities? Real estate agents got to sell
Yeah,
to
but
a
that's
celeb
like
once
Matt
in a
Damon.
while.
I get that, but like Lindsay Shookus has now been with multiple
I
celebrities.
just wonder, well, they're longtime
So-
friends. I wonder how, but I just have a feeling, you know, I think once you're in that circle a little bit, you naturally just like, you probably have friends, publicists, whatever it may be, and you just kind of run with as Jill Zarin said on Real Housewives, a fabulous circle of people.
Well, it is just a position that I don't think people knew that one could even have. And so I fully expect the applications for, for NBC Universal to be going up after all of this.
Well, or you could just get invited to a birthday party that A-Rod's attending.
I think that's harder than going through the application process and getting
a job.
Getting the job.
That's already filled by this woman.
I think I would have an easier time getting that job than I would getting to A-Rod's birthday party.
I disagree. I think it would be, I think it's one of those things where it's like, oh God, I was just about to make a sports reference. I think it's one of those things that's like, you do it for years,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like, that's not a quick turnaround. It's not an intern, this is somebody who's
it might take me years to get into A-Rod's beach party or birthday party.
Well, not if you hop the fence.
Also, I have to be okay with being arrested.
Look, Luann did it. That is, those are the topics of the day. But Kate, you have a deep dive you wanted to talk to us about.
Yeah. So first of all, I did finally over the weekend watch the Son of Sam documentary on Netflix, and it's kind of crazy because I didn't know about any of all of this, and I usually know quite a bit. Did you watch that, Allison?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I was just going to ask you what your thought process on it was, because I have a hot take on it, but I guess I will move past that.
What is your hot take?
Well, I think they were trying to set it up in the documentary like there's a chance that this Maury Terry actually was correct in the link of all of the satanic cults across across the world, across the nation, and how this actually might go as deep as Charlie Manson and all that kind of stuff.
Oh.
But I think it was I think he was a bad journalist. That's my hot take.
Ooh.
But anyway,
God.
he just didn't. He was almost like QAnon was what he was doing. He was finding science and things that didn't exist. And while I do think that there were more people involved in the Son of Sam shooting than David Berkowitz, I do think that his overall opinion of it was more than likely wrong. Anyway, but
can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Is his father's name Sam?
Wow, so you know nothing about this.
I don't. This is actually a blind spot for me.
Okay, so I'll go through it really quick just to spare those who actually do know about it. But basically, David Berkowitz was accused of killing these people, shooting them in New York City, and he said it was because he was taking like advice, and he was hearing from this dog, a neighbor dog that belonged to a man named Sam, and the dog was telling him to kill people. But he very clearly he tried to make himself in a case of insanity, but it's clear that he's not.
Is this something that involves a post office?
He's a post office worker. Yes.
Okay, that's where the phrase "going postal" came from. Then
no.
I think it did.
I
heard that on a podcast, and look, as podcast host right now, everything we say is true.
I thought the phrase "going postal" came from a string of like post office related violence. So yes, it derives from a series of incidents from 1986 onward, in which United States Postal Service workers shot and killed managers, fellow workers, and members of the police or the general public in acts of mass murder. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, between 1970 and 1997, more than 40 people were killed by current or former employees, and at least 20 incidents of workplace rage.
Whoa.
So that is what that is. So it's not him being a postal worker is just very tangentially related to the whole case.
Sure.
Basically, what is believed is that the Son of Sam is actually the two people that were the actual sons of Sam, the person who owned the dog, were involved in sort of some like occult ritual stuff with David Berkowitz, and they kind of did this together. But the documentary posits that it was a gigantic thing that has ties back to Charles Manson and other big churches. But anyway, so that's that. But it was fine. Anyway, but no, that wasn't even my deep dive for the day. But after I watched that, I watched some Forensic Files because, Sundays are the day for true crime. And I was actually surprised to learn about a case in Baton Rouge. I did not realize that there was a serial killer in Baton Rouge in the 90s. Did you ever hear about this?
No.
So it was a man named Derek Todd Lee who ended up killing a handful of people, at least 7 people. And it's believed that he might have had more as well. And the reason that his case was so interesting, at least watching it, and I was watching an old Forensic Files that was probably made in the early 2000s or the mid 2000s, maybe.
Retro.
They're all very retro. You can't not watch a retro Forensic Files. But what was interesting about it is the person who worked on the DNA profile when they had DNA of this person was notable for being able to identify the ethnicity of the person who killed, which now, of course, like, since we have 23andMe and all of these things, that seems so basic to us that you'd be able to identify from somebody's DNA what their background is. But what this did was allow them to see that the serial killer was actually somebody that was a Black man and not a white man, during a time in which it was believed that 90% of serial killers are white men, which is kind of true. And most of the victims in this case were white people. And as we've read a lot about serial killers in the past, mostly the way that people commit crimes is usually, or serial killers commit crimes, are usually against their own race. So white killers have white victims, Black killers have Black victims, et cetera, et cetera. So this was a totally different case altogether. And I just found it so fascinating that this was even seen as something that we wouldn't have been able to do when now we can do it so easily. And they said, and they had some of the people talking about it, the forensics folk in it, saying that, like, basically over time, we're going to see a less crime because people will learn that committing a crime is basically like putting your driver's license right there, because everyone's going to see everything about you. It's not just matching these specific things in DNA. It's being able to actually create a profile of who you are, what your background is where you came from. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting because that's kind of the way it is now. Like, I would never commit a crime, not for many reasons, but also because,
what's the top
my God.
one?
Huh?
What's the top reason?
Well, the top reason is
because
like,
you would get caught.
Well, no, I mean, it's just that I can't get close enough to somebody to do that. Like, physically, that's a lot.
Not the moral
Moral's number
code.
1. Number 2 is like, I get out of my space. And then number 3 is like, you can't get away with anything. I mean, the things that they catch in Forensic Files, which is why I'm still confused as to why we can't catch the Delphi murderer. But the things that they can catch in Forensic Files is totally crazy.
Yeah. One day I'll do my deep dive on a case that happened, a murder that happened in the town I went to college in, and how they ended up catching this person years and years later because of like 23andMe.
Oh yeah, that's like sort of the Golden State Killer thing. Everybody's being able to go into this.
And they were able to tell like ethnicity and background of the person, but years and years later. Through a cigarette butt that they found at the mall. Oh, wow. And I mean, it's truly fascinating. And I mean, it's devastating, but just as to your point, like what they're capable of doing now in terms of technology it's the reason you shouldn't commit a crime, guys.
Well, I heavily recommend, watch Forensic Files right before you go to bed. I promise you it's not going to not make you fall asleep. It actually makes you fall asleep because everything is figured out. His voice is like ASMR, the narrator. It's just such a nice, peaceful watch at night that I couldn't recommend more. And you learn something from it. And you do learn how to commit the perfect crime, but try not to do that.
Well, yeah, one day I would love to talk about how to commit the perfect crime.
I've got ideas, but like I'm never going to put them to use. So it's kind of a waste.
Yeah. And also never say them out loud, because I feel like whenever that happens in TV shows, like if we were to go through right now, like How to Get Away with Murder, then somebody will frame us using exactly what we said. And then
Good point,
we
good
have
point.
just said it and it's on the record. But us now saying that could happen, if it does happen, that helps our case. So
Well, see,
it's complicated.
I'm always worried too that like if I were ever in a situation where there was like a murder nearby, I also and I didn't do it, let's say, then
Kate, you're being so cavalier. Like you're so casual about like if you could or couldn't be involved in a murder in the future.
No, I'm saying like let's say I walked in on something or whatever, and like I feel like I'd be so hyper conscious about what to do that like I would be seen as immediately a suspect. Like I would know
100%.
not to touch. And I would like, and I actually watched, there was a Dateline once with a woman who said that she, you know, she saw her mother was murdered. And she, when the police arrived, she was like, I touched this, this, and this, and I didn't touch anything else. And that was like the first thing she said to them. And they were like, well, like, it's a little suspicious that the first thing she says is what she touches and doesn't touch. And so they suspected her for a long time. And the Dateline reporter talking to her was like, well, why did you say that? And she's like, I watched Dateline.
Because you've told me.
It's like we know what to do. We've been around the block here. We understand how to act.
Our first rodeo.
We know to lawyer up immediately, even though that makes us look guilty. We know.
I know. Well, yep, we do. And at this point, I mean, I'm also really interested in that one case where it's like those two rich guys who just wanted to prove like they were brothers. They just wanted to prove they could murder someone.
The Menendez brothers?
No, the Menendez brothers. I feel like there was a lot more going on there.
Yeah, no, there was a lot more going on.
But this is like, and I'm probably getting some of the facts wrong, but it was like just these two privileged guys that were like, we can get away with murder. So they killed someone. And it was like, I think someone semi-adjacent to them. And they ended up like, they hadn't, you know, it would have been like the perfect crime, except for the fact that one of them left their glasses, which were like specifically like a very specific brand where not many were made, like not many of them were made at the crime or something like that. And they were found out immediately from it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it was like their whole thing was just like, I bet we can get away with it. So let's just do it.
Wow.
So I'm going to go watch How to Get Away with Murder.
But I don't know that I would ever do that.
Murder someone?
Just to show I could get away with it.
You're being so... What are your parameters for murder then? Like, I don't know if like, I can't tell if it's a shtick or not. Like,
I mean, come on. You know that like, if I make somebody feel bad about something, or if I think I make somebody feel bad, I will like punish myself and feel horrible for like no less than 10 years. So for the thought of actually being able to murder somebody, like I can't deal with that guilt.
Well, again, nothing you're saying is like, it's bad. It's like, you can't handle the guilt. You don't want to get caught. You don't want somebody coming up in your space.
It's the inner Catholic. This is how I was raised. What can I say?
Well,
guilt.
We will certainly get into this another time. We'll unpack all of it. But until then, we encourage everybody to check out TV Watch Repeat. Our Siesta Key episode is out, as I said earlier in the episode. And then you can also check out thedip.com and use the promo code POPCHASER for 50% off your subscription. Make sure to like and review this podcast. If you have any comments about or concerns about things that were discussed, you can certainly leave them on thedip.com, or you can tweet at us. You can Instagram us, however you want. We will see it and we will flag the appropriate authorities.
Oh, Lord.
And until next time, when we are back with the newest headlines in entertainment, we will wish you a cheers. Kind of fumbled that one a little, but that's okay. That's a Ted Lasso reference.
Oh, sports. Love the sports.
Okay, parachute's ready.
Boy, the things I go through to get auto loan rates as low as 0.99% APR for 60 months on new vehicles with PenFed.
You are aware that you don't have to be a military member to save hundreds on your auto loan, aren't you? Anyone can join PenFed.
As someone terrified of heights, I probably should have looked into that.
Probably.
Drop me off at the shore.
PenFed Credit Union. Visit PenFed.org/autos or call 1-800-247-5626. Advertised rates available through the PenFed car buying service. To receive any advertised product, you must become a member of PenFed, insured by NCUA.
Now is the chance to use reliable energy to grow your money with the Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. Our new investment product offers competitive returns, no maintenance fees, and flexible online access to your money. Make the reliable investment in reliable energy. The Dominion Energy Reliability Investment. To find out more, go online to reliabilityinvestment.com. That's reliabilityinvestment.com.